Imagine being a young girl, lying in a hospital bed, fighting for your life, but holding on to one final wish, to meet the man she's admired her whole life, Elon Musk. What if that wish somehow came true? And what if the moment that followed was something no one could have expected? A twist that would change everything. This is the story of a girl whose dream became reality, and how that dream led to a heart-wrenching, unforgettable moment that redefines what it means to truly care. It's a journey that will make you reflect on your own ideas of kindness, empathy, and the power of human connection. A story of a dying wish, an unlikely hero, and a moment that no one saw coming. Sarah was only 9 years old, her small body barely able to keep up with the weight of the illness that consumed her. The hospital room smelled of sterile medicine, a sharp, almost metallic scent that filled the air and clung to her skin. The rhythmic beeping of the machines around her echoed like a ticking clock, each sound reminding her that time was slipping away, time she could never get back. Her tiny hands, so fragile now, could barely grip the stuffed animal her mother had given her for comfort. A once vibrant child, now lost in the haze of exhaustion, her eyes sunken and dull, not from a lack of spirit, but because her body was simply too weak to keep fighting. Yet, in the midst of all the pain, Sarah held on to something that made her feel alive, a dream. A dream so big, so impossible, that even the doctors didn't think it could come true. She had watched the rockets soar into the sky, the very rockets Elon Musk had sent into space. The ambition, the power to change the world, it fascinated her. Every night she would close her eyes and imagine what it would be like to meet him, to speak to someone who had the ability to push humanity beyond what anyone thought was possible. She thought that if she could meet him somehow, things would feel better, like she could hold on a little longer. But Sarah's dream was not just about meeting a famous billionaire. It was about hope. It was about finding a way to escape the harsh reality of her condition, even if just for a moment. With every passing day, her health deteriorated further, and the doctors were no longer optimistic. They spoke in quiet tones, their faces grim, but Sarah didn't care for their words. All she wanted was one thing: to meet Elon Musk. Her parents, torn between hope and despair, watched as their little girl held on to that dream with a tenacity they had never seen before. They didn't know how to make it happen, but they couldn't bear to see her give up. They searched for ways to connect with Musk, hoping for a miracle, knowing time was slipping away faster than they could catch up. For Sarah, every moment that passed without her wish being fulfilled felt like another blow. It wasn't just the illness taking over her body. It was the crushing weight of knowing that her dream might never come true. She had only one hope left, and that hope was more than just meeting a man. It was about holding on to something bigger than herself, a dream that could light up the darkness surrounding her. Her parents, knowing how much this wish meant to Sarah, promised they would do everything in their power to make it happen. But deep down, they were unsure. They didn't know if they could reach someone like Elon Musk, someone who seemed so far out of reach. All they knew was that their daughter's last wish had become the only thing keeping her fighting, and they would do whatever it took to make it come true. Sarah's mother sat by her side, her heart heavy with each passing second. The once lively girl she had raised now lay frail and silent, her tiny body weakened by the sickness that slowly drained the life out of her. The steady hum of machines filled the room, but all her mother could hear was the quiet sobbing of her own heart. She gently took Sarah's hand in hers, the touch so delicate, as though she was afraid the smallest movement would break her. "What would you want, sweetie?" her mother asked softly, her voice trembling despite her efforts to keep it steady. She had asked this question many times before, but today was different. Today she could feel the weight of the question pressing on her chest, knowing that each answer might be a little more painful than the last. Sarah's eyes flickered, tired but still so full of life. She lifted her hand weakly, trying to grasp onto the words she had been holding in her heart for so long. Her voice, barely a whisper, caught in her throat. "I want to meet Elon Musk," she murmured, "just once before I go." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a dream that felt so far out of reach. Sarah's mother froze, her heart skipping a beat. She had heard her daughter speak of this wish before, but hearing it like this, in such a fragile state, was different. It wasn't just a passing desire anymore. It was a lifeline. Sarah's eyes were filled with a quiet desperation, a hope that this simple meeting could somehow change the course of everything. Her mother blinked back the tears that threatened to spill. The thought of her daughter wanting something so impossible, so far beyond their reach, felt like an insurmountable obstacle. But in that moment, something inside her stirred. She saw the sincerity in Sarah's eyes, the determination that burned through her pain. "I'll try, darling," she whispered, squeezing her daughter's hand gently. "I'll try." And so she did. For the next few days, Sarah's mother poured herself into trying to make the impossible happen. She reached out to anyone who might have a connection to Elon Musk, sending emails, messages, and even trying to contact his team directly. She explained Sarah's situation, how her daughter, despite everything, still clung to the hope of meeting the man whose rockets soared into space, whose name had become synonymous with possibility. At first there was silence, no replies, no signs that anyone had even seen the messages. Sarah's mother felt the crushing weight of reality bearing down on her. What if this was all just a dream? What if in the end it was all for nothing? But then, just as she was about to give up, something extraordinary happened. An email came through, a brief, simple message that sent her heart racing. "We've heard about Sarah and her wish. Elon Musk would like to meet her." The words didn't seem real. Could it really be possible? Her hands shook as she read the message again. Her breath caught in her throat. The tears came then, not out of sorrow, but out of sheer disbelief. She had done it. She had reached him. Without wasting a second, Sarah's mother called her husband, her voice breaking as she told him the news. "It's happening. He's going to meet her. Elon Musk is coming." When Sarah's mother shared the news with her daughter, Sarah's eyes lit up for the first time in days. The strength in her was almost palpable. "Mom, are you serious?" she asked, her voice trembling with excitement. "I'm really going to meet him?" Sarah's mother nodded, her own tears falling now, her heart swelling with both joy and sadness. "Yes, sweetie. You're going to meet him. Just hold on a little longer. Just a little longer." For Sarah, it was as if the clouds had parted, and in that moment, her hope was no longer a distant dream, but something within her grasp. The battle she had been fighting for so long had found its purpose: to make her dream come true, to meet the man whose name she had whispered so many times before. But even as the reality of this miraculous opportunity sank in, there was a sense of urgency. Time was still against her. Every day, every hour felt like a ticking clock, reminding them all that they didn't have much longer. But for Sarah, it didn't matter. The one thing that kept her going was within reach, and she would fight with everything she had to hold on. Elon Musk, the man who had always seemed like a figure too far removed from her world, was about to walk into her life. And in that moment, everything felt possible again. It was a quiet afternoon when the phone rang. The sound sliced through the stillness of the hospital room, breaking the fragile silence that had settled over Sarah and her mother. Sarah was lying in bed, her face pale, her body exhausted, and her breath slow and shallow. The machines around her beeped steadily, marking the passing of time, each second a reminder that the clock was ticking down. Her mother, sitting beside the bed, had been staring out the window, lost in her thoughts. She had tried so hard, done everything she could to make this moment happen, but it had always seemed too far out of reach. She had convinced herself that it was just too much to ask for. Elon Musk, the man who was shaping the future, could never meet a little girl like Sarah. It was an impossible dream. But then the phone rang. Her heart skipped a beat as she quickly reached for it, her hands trembling. She looked at the screen. There was no name, just an unknown number. Her breath caught in her throat, a flicker of hope rising inside her. She answered, her voice shaky. "Hello?" On the other end, the voice that answered was calm, steady, but it carried a weight of certainty that made her heart race. "This is Elon Musk. I heard about Sarah's wish. I'm coming to visit." For a moment, everything stood still. The words hung in the air, a surreal, unthinkable reality. Elon Musk, the man whose name had become synonymous with space exploration, innovation, and a new kind of future. The man whose work had inspired millions. He was coming to meet her daughter. He was coming to make a dream that had once seemed impossible real. Her mouth went dry and she struggled to find her voice. "Are you sure?" "You don't have to. We never expected you to— I'm sure. Elon's voice interrupted gently, firm yet compassionate. I know how much this means. I'm coming. Her eyes filled with tears, her heart swelling with a mix of disbelief and overwhelming emotion. She didn't know how to process it, didn't know how to respond. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. But the steady assurance in his voice made her believe. It was happening. She could barely find the strength to speak. Thank you. Thank you so much. As the phone call ended, Sarah's mother stood there for a moment, frozen. She couldn't believe it. It felt like her body was filled with a rush of energy and disbelief all at once. Elon Musk, the man who had changed the world in so many ways, was coming to meet her daughter. To meet their daughter, she turned quickly to Sarah, who was still lying in bed, her eyes closed, as if she were drifting in and out of consciousness. Her heart pounded as she gently sat beside her, taking Sarah's hand in hers. She didn't want to get her hopes up too much, not wanting to cause any more pain. But she couldn't help herself. Sweetie, she said softly, her voice trembling, you're not going to believe this. Elon Musk, he's coming to meet you. He heard about your wish, and he's coming. Sarah's eyes flickered open, her face pale but her expression lighting up as her mother's words sank in. She blinked slowly, as though she were trying to process the impossible. Then she gave her mother a weak smile, one that somehow seemed stronger than all the pain she had endured. Are you serious? She whispered, her voice barely audible. He's really coming? Her mother nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks now. Yes, darling. He's coming. In that moment, it felt as though the entire room filled with light. Sarah's weak hand tightened around her mother's, the glimmer of hope in her eyes almost as bright as the stars in the sky. The impossible had become possible. The dream she had held onto for so long, the dream that had kept her going through the hardest days when it was finally coming true. But there was more. As Sarah's mother prepared for the arrival of Elon Musk, Sarah's excitement grew stronger. She tried to sit up, her strength waning but her determination unchanged. I have so many questions, Sarah whispered, her voice shaky with the effort. I want to ask him about the rockets, and Mars and everything. Her mother smiled through her tears, brushing a strand of hair from Sarah's face. You'll have all the time you need, sweetheart. All the time you need. As the hours passed, the anticipation in the room became almost unbearable. Sarah's mother worked quickly, trying to prepare her daughter as best as she could, making sure she was comfortable and ready. For the moment, she had been waiting for her whole life. And then, as if in the blink of an eye, the moment arrived. Elon Musk walked into the room. He was everything Sarah had imagined, and yet he was so much more. His presence filled the room with an air of quiet brilliance, and Sarah couldn't help but stare, her heart pounding in her chest. There he was, standing in front of her, the man who had made rockets soar into space, the man whose name she had whispered with wonder. Hi, Sarah, Elon said, his voice warm, yet somehow full of the calm authority he carried with him. I heard you wanted to meet me. For a moment, Sarah couldn't speak. The emotions coursing through her were so intense that words escaped her. She just nodded, her eyes wide, a tear slipping down her cheek. Elon bent down to her level, sitting beside her bed. I'm really glad I could make it, he said, his voice gentle. I know how important this moment is for you. And for me, too. Sarah smiled faintly, the exhaustion evident on her face. But her spirit was shining brighter than ever. In that moment, the world outside didn't matter. All that mattered was that her dream had come true, and that the impossible had, in fact, been made possible. Sarah never knew what it felt like to have her wish come true until that day. When Elon Musk walked into her hospital room, it felt as though time itself paused, holding its breath. In those precious moments, Sarah wasn't just a sick child in a sterile hospital room. She was a young girl having a conversation with one of the most influential figures on the planet. For her, it wasn't just about meeting a billionaire or a celebrity. It was about the realization that someone so powerful, so out of reach, cared enough to show up, to make a moment happen that Sarah would carry with her forever. In a world that often feels disconnected, this simple, genuine act of kindness shattered the boundaries of what we think is possible. Elon Musk didn't just show up because of his fame or fortune. No, it was something much deeper than that. It was his decision to be present when it mattered most. In that quiet hospital room, He wasn't the CEO of a space company. He wasn't a billionaire. He was a human being, offering his time to make a young girl's dream come true. That moment changed Sarah's life, but it didn't end there. It wasn't just Sarah who was touched by this experience. Her mother, the doctors, the nurses, and anyone who heard about the story felt the ripple of kindness that spread from one man's decision to show up. And in a world so often driven by ambition, competition, and individual success, Elon Musk's small act of kindness was a reminder of what truly matters. Sarah had always dreamed of meeting someone who could change the world, someone who could make the impossible possible. But in the end, the lesson wasn't just about making dreams come true. It was about the power of empathy, compassion, and taking action when someone needs you most. As Sarah lay there, finally at peace with herself, her eyes closed in the calm of her final moments, she knew her wish had come true. She didn't just meet Elon Musk. She had witnessed the true power of kindness. And in that moment, Sarah's life wasn't defined by illness, pain, or the time she had left. It was defined by the love, the empathy, and the humanity she had witnessed in a single, powerful gesture. We all have the capacity to change someone's world. Sometimes it's the smallest actions, showing up, listening, and offering kindness, that have the most profound impact. Elon Musk didn't change the world that day with rockets or technology. He changed it with his heart, and for Sarah, that was all she needed. To be seen, to be heard, to be loved. If this story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more powerful moments that remind us of the extraordinary impact of kindness. Share this story, and let's spread the love together.